Madalon O'Rawe Amenta was raised and educated in Boston and has lived in New York City, New Haven, Connecticut, Washington, D.C., Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is where she came here from, Turin, Italy, and Nottingham, England. As an actor, she performed at the Provincetown Playhouse and Circle in the Square in New York and the Poets Theater in Cambridge, Massachusetts. She has also worked as a hat check girl, waitress, technical librarian, nurse, professor, researcher, writer, and editor, retiring as a founding executive director of the Hospice and Palliative Nurses Association. That is the organization responsible for certifying nurses in the field of hospice and palliative medicine today. In addition to over 80 clinical and academic articles, manuals, newsletters, research reports, and books, one of which has won an American Journal of Nursing Book of the Year award, her work has appeared in Parents Magazine, Salon.com, Stories About Time, Pittsburgh City Paper, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Signatures, Ring Road Press, Carnegie Mellon University, and Voices from the Attic, Carlow University Press. So please join me in welcoming Madalon.
In the mid-1970s, one Saturday afternoon, I had picked up Kubler-Ross's book on death and dying, and I read it, and I was really and truly turned around by it. I was really deeply moved by it. And my husband and I were going to dinner at a friend's house, and walking over there, I was telling him all about it, and I said, I think it's just the most wonderful thing that she's done. She's allowed patients to be patients, not things, in a regimented, dehumanized system, which is what I saw in hospital nursing. As I had come through the Yale School of Nursing, and they taught us to be really independent professionals, and then when we got out in the world, hey man, that wasn't the case. Not the case at all. And we had to adjust each in his own way to this kind of what I regarded as pretty dehumanized experience, which is why I always loved the community far better than anything in-house, but whatever. So anyway, I said, but it's impossible. This will never happen. The American healthcare system is just so rigid, so regimented, so set in stone that this will never happen. And I really think it's too bad. One day she said, you know, Madalon, we're going to have to bring people, we're going to have staff and volunteers, and there's no education, and we need orientation and education, not just for staff, but also for volunteers, because we were looking for many more volunteers than we were for staff at the time. So I said, and I said, Rose, and isn't this a fantastic opportunity to do some research? Because my degree was in research, administration, and planning. This is a great opportunity. And she said, well, Madalon, can you write a proposal? So I tell everybody, as I have traveled since those times, never say, this is a great opportunity for research. Someone's going to always say to you, write a proposal. And there you are, really on the line, in the spotlight. Can you produce, etc. Which I did write the proposal. We submitted it to the local United Way. They funded us for 3 years, which took care, okay, then they asked me to work for them. I was just volunteering my time on this committee, and I wrote the proposal on my own time and whatnot. But I was teaching at the University of Pittsburgh, so she said to me one day, I don't want to do anything to impair your academic career, but could we make some arrangement whereby you would come and do education for us, and you could still maintain your work part-time for us and part-time for the university? And in trying, I really had no delusions or illusions about having a great career in academia. For me it was a logical job at that time, and that's all it was. But anyway, I went back and I talked to the dean and the associate dean, and I were trying to negotiate some kind of a time and financial package. And all of a sudden, I don't know, she just got very upset. She threw the pencil and said, "No more part-time people here." Oh, okay. So then I had to make a decision. Excuse me, my word. Great. Would I go? And then I'm going to go on YouTube. Incredible. Okay. So anyway, I had to make this decision. What would I do? So I went back and I told this woman at Forbes, this is what they said, you know, and she said, "Madalon, we will hire you in a minute." So they hired me in a minute, full-time, to be a director of research because the research was there, and education. And plus I got a hospital administration salary and not an academic salary. So, you know, you go through life and lots of interesting, bad things happen, but good things also happen. And as happens in my life, it did happen in my life almost until this day, and to this day, everywhere I go, I get involved in the newsletter. And we didn't have bylaws, we didn't have officers, but I thought, what do we have? We have a newsletter. We can communicate with all of these people. So we started the newsletter. We had an organization meeting. We developed bylaws. We had loads of people who were very familiar with bylaws, and from working with Oncology Nursing Society and from working in the State Nurses Association. We had loads of people who were familiar with organizing. So we got that all together. And at the first meeting where we elected officers, they elected me president. Yay, team. One time we had a state meeting, and the governor's wife was the guest speaker, and I introduced her, and she said, "I really feel a little humbled to have been introduced by a doctor and a president." So, okay. All I knew was I had a lot of work to do, and I had to keep getting it done, and I had to keep getting the material out. Okay. And while I was at that meeting, you know, you go to these big meetings and there's a break after a plenary session and you get a little cup of coffee and all kinds of people. You never know who you're going to find yourself next to. And so a person happened to be standing next to me at coffee, and he said, "Where are you from? What are you doing? And he happened to be one of the operatives from NIH. And he said, "You know, you people who are out in these areas have to start organizing at the state level, because it's at the state level that licensure is going to come in. It's at the state level that regulatory issues are going to become important. And so you have to start," he said, "you really have to start organizing." So I told my boss, who was also at the meeting. So the minute I got home, we got in touch with everyone who was on the list, who had been at that meeting from Pennsylvania, and we urged them to get in touch with everyone else that they knew, because we thought we should start a state association. So then we started the Pennsylvania Hospice Network, so we got that going. There was no book. So I wrote a proposal and I sent it around, and I had the happy response that many publishers were very interested in looking for a hospice book because there was none, and whatnot. And I decided on a publisher and whatnot. We went to England and had a good time doing there. And since I'm talking to you about my personal experiences in hospice, as Craig asked me to do and whatnot, in looking for people to co-author chapters in the book. I mean, I did a lot of PR, writing, historical stuff and whatnot, education, research. I did not do any clinical work. I sat in on all the clinical team meetings because that was part of my research, which the research was characteristics of hospice workers. So I sat in on all the team meetings. So I heard a lot about what was going on, but I never did any hands-on clinical work with patients. So I knew I needed people to write those chapters of the book if it was going to be a comprehensive book. And I knew a lot of people all over the country. I knew there were hospices who had dedicated sole professionals called pastoral counselors, and whatnot. And so I contacted these people and I said, write me an outline and sort of a little bit like a sample chapter and tell me what you would do for pastoral care. Still thinking, I would never touch this. I'll never touch this and whatnot. So anyway, they would send me back stuff. And somehow or other, as I say, it just didn't seem to touch what I had seen happen to families in our unit as a result of pastoral counseling. So I decided, well, I didn't need a job. My husband always used to tell me, don't take these jobs because we're going to have so much money when we retire, we're going to be giving the government more than we're getting. Okay, he was a professor in the medical school. Okay, so I didn't really need to look for a job, and so I said, well, so I decided, okay, I'll write this chapter. I'll try to find out what this thing is about. I'll write this chapter. Let me say to you, I have some off Amazon. We're getting books like this for like $5, $1.50. You know, they're coming through. So if you want them, you can get them on Amazon, whatnot. So anyway, and you'll find out if you get the book. It is the longest chapter in the book. It took me 6 months to write, and I have to say, it transformed my life. I have to tell you, now, that early research project I started, right? There were some publications. It took years, but we did get the data all analyzed, and we found out that compared to nurses in traditional settings, I'll give you these characteristics of what hospice nurses looked like, who they were, compared to traditional nurses, and in some cases, women in the wider population. They were capable of warm involvement, genuine, direct, gregarious, extroverts, strong-willed, tending to be religious, robust, optimistic, decisive, confident, assertive, innovative, free-thinking, experimental, independent, forthright. And on standard tests where forthrightness was a dimension, they were like way over here compared to anybody else I think, and whatnot. So does it sound like anybody you know? Okay, so this was our population. Of course, we started pushing certification. What we did was we developed a little questionnaire and sent it out. We sent it out to our membership. We asked them to give it to everybody they knew to answer. Did people want certification? And then we sent Oncology Nursing Society distributed it, and National Hospice Organization very kindly put it as an insert in one of their monthly newsletters, our little questionnaire. So we got thousands of responses. Overwhelmingly, nurses did want certification. So we managed to get the certification process going. We're dealing here with a modality where we've gone past professional relationships. In other words, professionals dealing with emotional issues with quote-unquote clients or patients are never supposed to reveal anything about themselves. You're never supposed to get too close. You're never supposed to care too much, and so forth and so on. See, I'm seeing people shake their heads. And that just isn't the way it works in hospice. And people stay in hospice. They love it. People who stay in hospice absolutely love it. Someone with whom I am still in touch wrote this, and I hope I can get through it without getting too emotional. What do we do as hospice nurses? We can describe what is unique to our practice, and perhaps more importantly, how can we demonstrate to others what is so special about our specialty? As we consider these questions, I would like to share a story written by one of the nurses with whom I work. Last night, I saw the essence of nursing and caring through the actions of one of my peers at hospice. I witnessed terror turn to calm at a time when there could be no quote-unquote later. Early in the evening, the patient's wife called for help with her ALS-afflicted husband, Jim, who had become too weak to cough up the secretions that were rattling in his chest. He was frightened, and so was she. As the on-call nurse, I planned to assist, but the wife wanted Sue, their RN case manager, to be there. Sue and I agreed to meet at their apartment, she because they wanted her, I to bring some needed medical supplies. I arrived thinking this was going to be a routine home visit. The moment I crossed the threshold, I knew I was wrong. Jim lay on his recliner. His wife, children, and brother hovered in concentrated stillness as Sue knelt on the floor at Jim's feet. She stroked his arm lightly, saying, "Jim, try to relax. I will not let you choke to death. We'll put on some music," which she did, "and we'll do this together." She proceeded to breathe every breath with him, bidding him to focus on how easily the air was moving in and out, almost in time with the music. Clearly, something meaningful was happening. It was audible, visible, palpable. It was beautiful. Words like poetry and symphony kept running through my mind. Jim's breathing became unlabored. It grew slower and slower. Calmly, he died. For a long time, no one moved, no one spoke. Then the communion began. As I watched and listened to the family share stories, laughter, and tears with us, I reflected on the privilege of seeing such a gentle death in today's messed up world. I'm honored to call this my work.